Back on the Sports Authority with Local12.com digital editor and columnist Richard Skinner. Bengals season is over. Skinny, your season never ends. And now you're in basketball season, so you're Coach Skinner as Kentucky is underway.
Finally underway. Thank goodness for that.
Finally. So hopefully, knock on plexiglass
Yes.
that it stays that way. I want to start with Xavier. Another win in dramatic fashion at Cintas against a Big East foe. Providence, a 74-73 win. Colby Jones hits the game winner. He reveals after the game that he was playing with a heavy heart with the loss of his grandfather. You just love moments for these kids, a moment that he probably needed very, very much.
No question. I mean, I don't think the set was completely designed for him because there was a lot of options. Kunkel coming downhill was one. The kick to the corner was one. But then who does the ball find? It finds him at the top of the key, wide open. And, great design of the set, all those things. But then he's got to make that shot with the heavy heart, as you mentioned about his grandfather. Sometimes things are just meant to be, right? I mean, you can't even explain that if you even tried to explain it. So, big win for Xavier, big moment for him. And for Xavier, they dodged a couple of these. And when you look up, it doesn't feel like a 10-2 team. But you are a 10-2 team, and don't need to apologize for that. And these are the games they need to win in the league. These kind of middle of the league teams, you can't lose to those type teams at home. And they found a way to win today.
And it seemed like last year they were finding ways to lose,
right?
And now they're finding ways to win. And they continue to be in flux roster-wise. Now with Ben Stanley out, they're going to have to figure out a way to play. I don't know, more guards. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, and I think the thing for that is. Addition by subtraction is not fair because Ben Stanley was giving them some good minutes offensively, but I think Travis was having a hard time figuring out how to juggle the rotation. And some of that is you had all these parts come in at different times, so you didn't get a chance to do that starting with the first game. You've kind of had to do it in piecemeal fashion. They've got enough length, in my opinion. They've got enough size that if you can play the multiple guards, that's just basketball today, for goodness sakes. And he's got good ones. I mean, Odom didn't play down the stretch, today, and he's a good player. Colby Jones can shoot it. Scruggs can do both. Kunkel hasn't shot it well of late, but obviously he had an 8.5 assist game. And if you look at the plus minus, I think he was +8 today. It doesn't always mean everything, but that's a pretty good plus minus in a game that came down to a 1-point game. So he's still got good parts, and maybe this does allow him then to reset the rotation maybe in a better way. I think he was having a hard time trying to juggle that.
Okay, they'll be at Seton Hall this coming week.
Yeah, of course they won't play in the middle of the week because nobody does anymore. You hey, we'll play here, and 10 days from now we'll play again.
Right. UC Hoops, it looked like maybe they had turned some sort of corner or at least got some good feelings. John Brannon, after the win against SMU, equated it to being a father and just having a kid who's sick and you just want him to feel better. That was a huge win for this team to just get a win in conference. But then today, just the things that have been plaguing Cincinnati all year, a lack of offense and turning the ball over. Yeah, and those turnovers led to 28 points off turnovers for Wichita State. It's one thing to turn it over. It's another thing to have live ball turnovers that lead to easy buckets, and that happened to them, unfortunately. And you're right, and today was nice for Zach Harvey, 19 points and all that, but then, you have Jeremiah Davenport, who had a big game last game. He scores 6 today. It doesn't feel like they can get everybody on the same page together. Only shot at 40-some-odd% today, and Wichita shot it great in the second half. And it's just a team that the SMU win, it was needed. I never felt like that was a turning the corner moment yet. Sure. I think we all needed to see more. I just think this team all year is going to fight a lot of inconsistency because they just have a lot of inconsistent players. You mentioned Davenport. He actually scored the bookend buckets in between the 8-minute lull offensively where UC did not have a field goal. They were leading 42-41 with 13:43 to play, down 67-51 with 5 minutes left. And this is a Wichita State team that was in turmoil this offseason with Greg Marshall leaving. They had a ton of transfers out of the program, and to not be able to put things together to that extent, troubling. Yeah, not just that stretch in the second half. I mean, the first half they were up, whatever it was, 11-4, and all of a sudden you look up and down 16-11. I mean, I think that just shows this team, unfortunately, just is not consistent enough offensively to sustain things. And I don't care if it's Wichita you're playing, if it's Tulsa you're playing, if it's UCF, whoever it is in the league, some of the lower echelon teams, you're just not going to beat them. It's going to be a struggle all year. Is there a fix for this, or is it just sort of
offseason and the transfer portal? I think. I mean, honestly, that's the only thing I can think of because they don't have a guy. Zach Harvey might evolve into that, but he's not that guy right now. I mean, Jeremiah Davenport is not. Keith Williams obviously is not comfortable in that role. I think it's another offseason of finding a body from somewhere else probably, or multiple bodies from somewhere else.
The Bengals, the only team in the AFC North left out of the playoffs this weekend. Some quiet moves made it some interesting times. Frank Pollock.
The move itself isn't weird, right? I mean, he was here a couple years ago. I think
the timing of it.
The timing of it. All of a sudden, I mean, I was literally, I was going to broadcast a game. I know you were going to shoot a game last night, and suddenly, right before I leave, it pops into my inbox. Usually I get a phone call, and about 10 minutes later, when I got the phone call, I felt like, what is this? Is this like the Saturday late afternoon, evening news dump? Are you trying to hide? Are you embarrassed that you're hiring Frank Pollock? I guess it felt like that, but I mean, he was here a couple years ago. New staff came in. They obviously opted not to retain him in part because of that, but I think it also shows that, right or wrong, upper management likes Frank Pollock. I know Zach Taylor has said that these are his decisions. I'm going to have a hard time completely believing that because, look, I think Frank probably, again, you want a new staff to have their own voice, and that's what Zach was allowed to have his own staff. But now with some turnover, I think they like Frank and the fact that he was available, that he was on that Jet staff that got let go. It's a good fit because, like I said, I think they're going to have a hard time filling some of those positions with upper echelon people, and I think that's why you saw the coordinators, at least Louis Anarumo, come back, because I just think they realized it was going to be a hard time to fit somebody into a potential lame duck staff.
You did see that Joe Mixon, among others,
spoke
I think
highly.
Hopkins spoke highly. Mixon had the most yards in a season in 2018 when Frank Pollock was the offensive line coach. So I guess if you're not getting, and a lot of people think very highly of Frank.
No doubt.
I think some people thought maybe Bill Callahan, Brian's dad, would potentially come in. But in terms of maybe you don't go out and get the best kind of guys, this is a pretty good guy to get.
Yeah, like I said, I think the Bengals really liked him when he was here. I think at least the upper management did. And like I said, Marvin's staff was let go after that season, and that's where you say, okay, new guy coming in, we're going to let him have his own staff.
Would there have been any interaction between Zach and Frank at that point?
I don't think so. If I remember right, I meant to look back at this. If I remember right, I think Frank had already had something in the works, knowing that Marvin was on his way out. I think it happened pretty quickly. So I'm going to say no to that, but Zach could probably correct that the next time we talk to him.
And it sounds like another move. Bob Bicknell is gone,
right.
And Troy Walters, who was the assistant wide receivers coach, just getting promoted. Is that
I think for him, he's been talked about in pretty high regard too. I mean, played a little bit in the league. I mean, he again was on this staff. I think they felt pretty good about having him on the staff. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a game this year that Bob missed, maybe even two for COVID. I know there was at least one, and he got a chance to be the wide receivers coach that day. So probably a natural progression there. And again, an easy thing to do. You don't have to try to go to outside, because I think, again, if you're going outside for some of these hires, Pollock falls into their lap because he's coming off a staff that was fired. It's just going to be hard because, let's face it, if they start 1-5, you're looking at a lame duck head coach. Nobody wants to walk into that situation. That's hard.
I think a lot of fans are hoping that the splashes will come in free agency and maybe not with
the coaches.
Not with the coaching hires. So Richard Skinner, our man on Local12.com, he covers the Bengals all year round, and we've got other stuff cooking now that the Bengals season is over, including the Skinny podcast. Twice a week?
Twice a week. Got a little college basketball that Chad Brendel and Rick Boring and I just got done doing, so it'll be up at some point overnight.
Skinny, thanks so much. We'll be right back.